Welcome to The Explainer. Today, we are diving into a really elegant and honestly super powerful mental model. It helps us tackle one of the biggest questions out there. How does all the complex, stable stuff in the universe just happen? I mean, really think about it for a second. You've got everything from the incredible, intricate structure of a snowflake to, the actual building blocks of life. All this complexity, it just seems to pop up out of nowhere. So is it all just random chance? Is there some grand design behind it? Or could there be a third option? Well, that's the big puzzle we are going to unpack today. And the tool we're going to use is a fantastic idea from the polymath Herbert Simon. He called it Simon's scissors. The whole idea is that structure isn't created by just one thing. Nope, it emerges from the precise interaction of two opposing forces. Imagine a pair of scissors. One blade is like an internal engine, just constantly cranking out possibilities. The other blade, that's the external filter, the harsh, cold rules of reality. The cut, the actual structure we end up seeing, only happens right where those two blades meet. All right, so let's actually build these scissors, shall we? We're going to start with the first blade. Think of this as the internal, endlessly creative force. Now, the source material calls this blade assembly heuristics. But hey, don't let that fancy term throw you. It's actually a pretty simple idea. It's just a set of basic internal rules that repeat over and over and over again, just endlessly pumping out new shapes and structures. The key thing to get is that it's not designing anything. There's no goal in mind. It's more like a nonstop idea factory, just churning out stuff based on a few simple instructions. So what kind of ideas does this engine actually produce? Well, it's all about simple, repeating patterns. We're talking about things like molecular chains that just keep adding links, or geometric shapes that build on themselves. It spits out simple sequences and basic structures like rings and spirals. You see, the engine isn't trying to make something complex. Its whole process just naturally creates repetition. And this is absolutely crucial to understand. This first blade has zero filter. No judgment, it has no idea what will work and what won't. Its only job is to generate. It is a pure engine of creation, not selection. Okay, so you have all these possibilities, but for any of them to become real, they have to face the second blade. And this blade represents the tough, unforgiving constraints of the physical world. This is the reality check. The source calls it the boundary conditions of matter, and it acts like a super strict bouncer at a club. It takes every single idea that the first blade churns out and asks one simple question: are you physically possible? And, well, most of the time the answer is a hard no. And this filter isn't just making things up, it's enforcing the fundamental laws of physics and chemistry. It's asking some really tough questions, like, are you thermodynamically stable, or are you just gonna fall apart? Do your geometric angles actually fit together in the real world? Are your chemical bonds strong enough to hold, or is a little heat going to tear you to pieces? These are the basic tests that most of the wild ideas from our possibility engine just can't pass, and so they get eliminated instantly. So when you put them side by side like this, you really get the picture, right? On one side, you have the engine creating this huge, almost infinite spectrum of what could be, and on the other, you have the filter carving out this very, very narrow hallway of what can actually be. The tension between these two is where everything happens. Which brings us to the most important part. What happens when these two blades finally meet? This is the moment of creation. This is the cut. The cut isn't something that one blade does to the other. It's the result of their interaction. It's that precise, almost magical moment where a form that's proposed by the engine just so happens to be one of the very, very few that is also allowed to exist by the harsh filter of reality. It's really this beautiful, simple three-step dance. First, generate. The engine makes countless options. Second, eliminate. The reality filter just gets rid of almost all of them. And third, survive. A tiny fraction makes it through. The ones that are stable enough to stick around and maybe, just maybe, become the building blocks for something even more complex down the line. Okay, so let's zoom out for a second. We've got the model. But why does this simple metaphor matter so much? Why is it such a powerful way to think about the world? Well, this framework gives us a few huge takeaways. First, it shows us that the emergence of complex structures isn't totally random, but it's not fully designed either. It happens right at that intersection. Second, without that reality filter, the generative engine would just produce, well, unstable chaos. And third, physical laws by themselves can't create anything new. They can only select from the options they're given. It's the interaction that truly creates. And we can see this play out perfectly in a real-world example, the emergence of ribose, which is a key sugar in RNA. So Blade 1, the chemical engine, proposes all kinds of different sugar structures. But Blade 2, the reality filter, says that if you're in water, most of those structures are just going to dissolve or fall apart. The cut happens with ribose, a structure that is both easy for the engine to make and happens to be stable in water. It survives.
So the big idea here is that complexity isn't always designed from the top down. A lot of the time, it's actually selected from the bottom up. A huge number of simple things are tried, and the very few that happen to fit the real-world constraints are the ones that stick around and build the world we see.
And that kind of leaves us with a really fascinating final thought. This principle of Simon's scissors is amazing for explaining things in biochemistry, but where else do you see it at work? Think about the creative process, right? You brainstorm hundreds of ideas. That's your generative engine. Then the constraints of your budget or your deadline or your audience, that's the filter. Decide which single idea actually gets made. From market economies to the evolution of technology and art, this simple scissor action is everywhere once you start looking for it. It's a truly powerful lens for understanding the world. Thanks for watching.